Good afternoon to you all. My name is Douglas Onen, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Community Show. This week, we're going to be discussing the impact of corruption on service delivery. Well, you're quite aware that Uganda has faced a number of corruption scandals. And joining me tonight to discuss today's topic is Mr. Musinguzi Goodluck. Mr. Musinguzi Goodluck has joined us a couple of times and is a very usual face and figure on Civic Space TV. Thank you very much, Mr. Musinguzi, for joining us. When the time comes, I'm going to ask you to unmute and introduce yourself. Right next to Mr. Musinguzi, Goodluck, we have Mr. Moses Aleper. Mr. Moses Aleper, as well, I'm going to ask you later on after to Mr. Musinguzi to briefly introduce yourself and let our audience know who we're speaking with. Let me begin right away with Mr. Musinguzi. Kindly unmute and introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm called Musinguzi Goodluck. I'm a journalist. I've been in media for some time. I'm a freelance now, online and other media houses. I have covered the topic of corruption for almost over 20 years. And so I believe my contribution maybe will add something towards the building of our country. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musinguzi. We're definitely looking forward to getting your insights. I've been covered a number of stories relating to corruption and would like to get your insights on that conversation. But before we get into that, let me welcome Mr. Moses. Mr. Moses, you're from the Karamoja region, and you've definitely faced a number of, particularly the recent event was the aspect of the iron sheets. But maybe you can briefly introduce yourself and we shall get into the nitty-gritties of that later on. Mr. Moses.
Thank you so much, colleagues. It's the very first time this meeting. My name is Moses Aleper, and by professional training, I'm a development practitioner. I've also had enough time to discuss several topics on corruption right away from my school, and I'm really very pleased to be here. Currently, I work as a data officer, helping 3 facilities.
Mr. Moses,
in Karamoja.
Yes.
So right now, yes.
Your network was slightly unstable, but it's okay now. You can proceed.
Yes, someone was trying to call my phone. Currently, I work with the LPHS Karamoja, ANECA. ANECA is African Network for Children Affected with HIV/AIDS in Africa. And it is based and implementing its services in Karamoja here. And right now I'm talking in Kotido district. So I will be more happy to have this discussion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses. Let's have the other panelist, Mr. Simon. Kindly unmute and maybe possibly turn on your video and introduce yourself so that our audience gets to know you. Mr. Simon, you're most welcome.
Thank you. It is a pleasure being on this part of this discussion. I'm Simon Peter Okadapao. I work with the Center for Constitutional Governance, and I'm based in Mbale office as a project coordinator for Voice. So it's a pleasure being part of this discussion, and I look forward to further engagement.
Thank you very much. We look forward to further engagement as well. Let me start the conversation with you, Mr. Musinguzi Goodluck. You have covered a number of stories relating to corruption. But before we go into the stories that you've covered under corruption, maybe for our viewers out there, you kindly put into perspective tonight's conversation. Maybe you tell us what corruption is, because corruption has various types of forms or types. So maybe as you unmute, you could possibly contextualize for us tonight's conversation, so that the person out there who is watching maybe understands tonight's conversation. Mr. Goodluck.
Thank you very much, viewers. My understanding of corruption along the journey is that, first of all, our people have failed to get the right facts. So sometimes you hear the word corruption on the top. Everybody will talk of corruption, but when you try to ask them the details, they don't know. And so I find that most of the people who succeed in this game of taking what is not theirs. They succeed by denying people information. And so a person who doesn't have information, definitely they will not know what belongs to them. But also secondly is that my biggest challenge has been where there is ignorance, where people don't know who to blame. So they do a blanket blame. And for me, as a journalist who has covered, who tries to go beyond the words, is that you find that if people knew what was due to them, they would be better. So most times our people in this country have invested in talking, but they don't invest in moving, in making a step, in understanding what it is. And for example, I covered the story in Karamoja. That was the Moroto Road, Soroti Moroto Road. No, Katakwi, that main road that came and it was an $80 million road. And I got deeper. I mean, and these people succeeded in taking part of the 46 billion away from the contractor. But if you go through, it's a case that took me to Karamoja, took me to Soroti, eventually took me back to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal. I can tell you this case is now in the Supreme Court. But it takes that deeper understanding. So society must have those people that really will go deeper into something, and so that we stop doing the hazy. So for example, somebody will say, we pay these people, they don't work. Government workers are lazy and what? And sometimes when you go deeper, you find people overwork even beyond what they are supposed to do. But if we were to focus, and most especially me, I think that our people need information. My colleagues will add on the definitions, but for me, deeply, I think that lack of information is affecting our people, and everybody joins the bandwagon, and then we lose the discussion and the focus. That would be my definition of corruption.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You highlight the aspect of information, and the lack of information is something that is detrimental and is putting our population to confuse these concepts. But thanks for making that very clear. Now that that is said, I want us to go ahead and discuss now the aspect of measuring the impact of corruption in terms of service delivery. Before I get to Mr. Moses, who comes from the Karamoja region, who at the moment are feeling the devastating impact of corruption. Let me first get your thoughts, Mr. Simon, on in terms of how is the impact of corruption on service delivery quantified or assessed? Or do you think there is a way we can get to quantify corruption if there is a way? Simon,
yes, to begin with, my understanding is of corruption is a fraudulent act by those in power to deprive of other institutions the power to utilize the resources equally. Now, my network is disturbing my internet. Are you with me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, and actually, Uganda is ranked as one of the highest countries with corruption tendencies in the whole world. And this aspect of corruption has really affected not only service delivery in Uganda as a whole, but also it also affected all institutions. And you know, the most funny bit is that the highest penalty for corruption, for those who practice corruption, is normally 14 years. But people are rarely imprisoned for 14 years. Yeah, you see, and the court systems have been also infringed in such a way that whenever a corrupt officer is brought to book, they even take less than 10 years in prison. This corruption has really affected service delivery in a way that the money that is supposed to be put in a certain sector, for instance, construction of maybe a hospital, maybe procurement of drugs, it is taken away by those officials who have the power to do so. The money is also maybe that is supposed to be used to procure books in schools, chalk, and other scholastic materials that are supposed to be used, is also taken away by those who are in power, leaving the education sector lacking certain requirements. And in the long run, of course, that one affects education sector. This corruption has also affected in such a service delivery in such a way that it has also made workers redundant in such a way that, for instance, money that is supposed to be used for fueling, maybe cars, motorbikes, so that these workers go maybe to the field to conduct their daily routine work, is also taken away by people. So in such a way that because the money for fuel has been taken away, workers are not supposed to fail to always reach to various places of work for monitoring, supervision, and other sorts of assignments. So that is my perspective on the impact of corruption on service delivery.
Thank you very much. You highlight very key and pertinent issues in tonight's conversation, from the impact it has on health, the impact it has on education, but entirely just generally the impact it has on service delivery. Let us hear from a gentleman who is from a region that is greatly feeling the adverse effects of corruption. Recently, we saw stories running on the media about the Iron Sheet saga, and later on we saw the DPP, Jane Francis Abodo, throwing out the case out of court. So, Mr. Moses, come and give us the perspective. How adverse, or how felt, or how grave felt are the effects or the adverse effects of corruption in Karamoja? Moses?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Douglas. Once more, good afternoon, members. Me as Moses, I term corruption as an enemy of humanity, which actually needs to be fought. I don't know whether it takes time for us to think to fight corruption, or we need to walk the talk and fight corruption. In my own perspective, I term corruption as a form of dishonesty or a criminal offense, which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is entrusted in a position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefits, or automatically we can term it as personal benefits or personal gain. That's of course abuse of power. Now, if we have corruption done in such a manner, how does it affect service delivery? For example, a case of our country, Uganda. Obviously, it has very many ways in which it has to affect service delivery. First of all, let us talk of wasted of taxpayers' money. Trust me, your grandmother, your uncle deep down there in the village, more so a farmer, invests money in business, and which money, for example, maybe goes in the name of revenue, and at the end of it all, it is mismanaged. How do we expect a service to come back to such a community? For example, a case of Karamoja, which is well highlighted for the when it comes to the iron sheet saga. We are talking about insecurity, and we are talking about appeasing the youth, the Karashuna, who are much involved in the insecurity angle. And then another person is taking advantage of their names, their signatures. Yet this is a program by the government to appease them so that they will settle and make the region peaceful. And then another person who worsens insecurity by eating the money and taking the iron sheets. So we mean, if the government is fighting, for example, the case of Karamoja, if the government is fighting down to make sure that communities settle and have a stable peace so that the economy, we can see the economic boom in Karamoja, we can see a lot of businessmen coming to the region, we can see very many investors coming into the region, doing different businesses, that automatically have to contribute to the country's growth and development. And then you are telling the Karachuna, police, these iron sheets don't belong to you. It belongs to us in these offices, in these cold rooms. Therefore, you are not solving the issue. That is how corruption automatically affects service delivery, because this corruption automatically will be saying now the government deceived us, and therefore there is nothing coming back in return. It's better we go back to the holy war, and then because we have been fighting through thick and thin to make sure that our families survive, though they actually contribute to their families in dangerous ways. But then, how would you steal the iron sheets, for example? These people are not settling. The government is coming from the other side. At the end of it all, who is fighting who where? Where is the really enemy, for example? Now I look at the enemies, the West enemies becoming the ones who took the iron sheet, and leaving the Karashuna still having that dangerous mind to go and steal and raid the neighboring communities, destabilizing the peace of such peaceful communities. So it affects service delivery in a way. This Karashuna automatically will pay a deaf ear to the government, and which will fail the government to bring services close to the Karamoja region, because it will always be termed as a very insecure place to be, and which I don't think any one of us here will be in a good mood to be in Karamoja. That's one of the ways why how corruption can definitely affect service delivery. The other one is and services. It is a connecting point. Lots of is someone hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
Okay, my network was a little jumpy. Yes, lots of goods and services. When you talk of Karamoja, I'm still giving a case study of Karamoja. We expect this land to be, this land actually is well endowed with very many resources that the government can tap in and build a better Uganda. So that would shift from a third world country to a developing country. Now that the place is very insecure, and we have very many people who are interested in coming to tap in these resources so that we can get the best out of Karamoja and build a better Uganda. How does it now affect? How does this corruption affect? You cannot tell me we have gold in Moroto, for example. We have gold in Moroto, in Nakabat, in Kosiroy, that is in Tapas. We have gold in Kapedo, in Kabong. And then you tell me you are getting this gold, and the gold is not coming back to give what is required for the people of Karamoja. Why can't you say, to be fair and just, please let us pick these resources, or let us build an industry that can benefit this Karashuna, because at the end of it all, they will get employed. Some of them will learn on job. We all know what it means, but that's all employment, and that is giving back. And then at the end of it all, Uganda will be benefiting. So when we put an aspect of corruption that we pick these resources, we take them and make Tororo cement. You are not even including the name of Karamoja somewhere, but you say Tororo cement. That for me, I look at that as a point of total corruption, because you know why you're picking the materials, and at the end of it all, you're paying a deaf ear to the region. You are not bringing what's exact what the region expects of you. So at the end of it all, that is corruption. And obviously, the next time these communities become wild and grow, no one will ever pick these minerals. So what do I mean here? Of course, if there is no picking of these minerals, that means the minerals will be wasted, and we should have not exhausted what we have as Ugandans from this end of Karamoja, so that we build a better Uganda. That means we need to be open, we need to be honest, that we do the best for Uganda, so that Uganda becomes the best country for each and everyone to live. The other one is one of the impacts of corruption is it lowers community confidence in public authorities. Yes, I can challenge you members. If you are interested in a public office, and each and every day, it is your office which is mentioned. Trust me, Douglas, given an example, you will not have public trust. And even people will be dodging your office because they know if I enter that office, I will not be served in the way I expect. So why would you abuse the degree, the masters that you have because you have misappropriated public funds? You know what it means? By law, you'll also be caught up somewhere. You'll be caught offside. So basically, once the community withdraws their confidence from you, there is no way you will come and give a service to the community. That is one of the impacts, the negative impacts of corruption in a society. The other one, as I summarize, the other one is it gives a disadvantage to the honest business seeking to win government contracts. We all know about these contracts that we bid for, that we compete for in government offices, and we know about technical know-who. We know about the stipend being paid, even to a firm that is not eligible to take this contract. Because you have an uncle in that office, because you have maybe a mother in that office, they have to direct your papers, and they have to sort you out. You'll be cleared and you are awarded the contract. At the end of the day, you come and do short work. A case study is, I remember when I watched it one time, I saw where the minister, that was Moses Esheru, was quarreling and actually was pissed off in public and abusing a public officer, an engineer, who actually did a short work in one of the areas around it. So I think Simon can bear me a witness. So that entirely shows that there is total corruption. So then, how do you expect such a community to receive, even when you come dressed very well, in a very good pleasant attire, that you are bringing a service to such a community? How will you give them a service when you have already poisoned, you have already given them pain? So for me, I believe corruption is an enemy of humanity, and which you and me need to join hands and fight it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Corruption is an enemy of humanity, which needs us to join hands and combat it. Thank you. Let me get back to you, Mr. Goodluck. When you listen to the submissions of my brother Moses, you get the feel that Karamoja is in a state that people are insecure because of, as he says, the effects of corruption, since the security in the region cannot be beefed up. He highlights the argument that the people in the region have greatly lost trust in the government and in the leaders. Now, as you come in and speak to the issue of economic consequences, you understand that we have a country with which we run on a deficit budget, of which 17% of our budget was allocated for payment of debt. So as you come and answer the question of how corruption contributes to economic inefficiency and decreased public resources for service provision, possibly you highlight for us the extreme end of how corruption has grave effects on economic consequences, considering the fact that we run on a deficit budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Moses. I beg to disagree with Moses at some point. And that's why I was saying information sometimes is a little bit of a problem. Because when you talk about, for example, minerals, the mining sector, I come from Kabale, and they mine wolfram. Wolfram, this is a mineral used to make bulbs and all these other electrical appliances. But basically, because I'm not a miner, I rarely read what happens. So there must have been people who have gotten the licenses, and they are there. They are either paying taxes and they are mining, and wherever they are taking the mineral, I really don't follow a lot. So in Karamoja, people are being, I think, given wrong information. And I think I've talked to so many people in Karamoja who are my colleagues, for example, in the media, and they had that very, very argument. And I've already said, why don't you go and join the mining sector? Because when you join the mining sector, you don't leave it for other people from other places. I think for me, it's about the issue of empowerment on that issue. Let me tell you this. In Karamoja recently, and I don't know whether Moses, you know about this, there are some people from Red Cross who went to pick blood to go out and mobilize the community for blood donation. It was during actually the last holiday. And these people were beaten up. And you know, we need blood for blood is not sold and blood is needed. But nevertheless, let me stop there on that issue. Let me talk about corruption in Karamoja. I think for me, there are two governments in Karamoja. There is the local government, and then there is the office of the Prime Minister. In Karamoja, local government accountability is not heard of. People don't want to speak about their leaders and about the billions of shillings sent to the local government. And most of the people in Karamoja unite when they are speaking about OPM and all their corrupt tendencies and misuse of resources. And I agree with them entirely. But for me, there shouldn't be small corruption and big corruption. All corruption should be condemned. In Kotido, where you are, some few months ago, a councillor came and raised an issue where he said 30 million shillings had been misused. And when we collaborated with some media from Moroto to cover, the authorities, some big authorities in Kotido were saying, why don't you let the media in Kotido to be the one covering? And of course, we knew that the media in Kotido can't cover because the moment they raise, they will be either shot or they will be harassed. So for me, I would think that in Karamoja, let's also track as we push OPM to do what is right, and I condemn everything that, as he said, the Karachunas being empowered, whoever, and I was really so sad. But I also see an element of lack of accountability on the part of people. And so when you bring in the issue of the economy, is that whether the gold is being taken somewhere, as long as they are paying the taxes, because remember now the money that comes, and I don't have the figures right here in front of me, but I can tell you there are billions of shillings that come to Karamoja. We all get money from the same basket, but we must contribute the taxes. So some of these minerals may be the taxes, and unless if somebody really does a big investigation and shows that some of these people who are doing the mining are freezing the country, they are not paying the taxes. So now, generally, me, I had also not spoken about how corruption affects society. My understanding, my thinking is that, one, we have not empowered, for example, our people to handle, for example, contracts. So, and sometimes, I don't know, I don't want even to use the Bible, but there is a verse in the Bible which says, the foreigners will come to your place. Now, when you look at people who come to our places, they come because they have to look for accommodation, they have to, buy everything. I don't know, they tend to work harder. They tend to come and look for opportunities in those places than the locals. Now, for me, I want to look at whoever is not empowering the local communities to be able to participate in the economic activities. Maybe also those people intentionally, they are promoting corruption. Either they are promoting their own people. And for example, also, I want also to speak about the jobs in Karamoja. There's also been a tendency of districts saying we are waiting for our people, our sons and daughters. And for example, also again in Kotido, the DHO is a clinical officer. A clinical officer is a diploma holder. And the Ministry of Health upgraded the health center for in Kotido to a hospital. That means you have more senior people who will be in the district. But even recently, Moroto Referral Hospital specialists came to do a camp, a medical camp in Kotido. Was he available? Because he really knows that he is a bit, he will not manage to handle this. And he was away. And for me, I also see that form of corruption in terms of the jobs that are being given. When you give people who, when we don't have this face of a nation, that in service delivery, when you say we rather deploy a diploma holder person who will not really grasp and maybe monitor these people who are higher than him. You also have denied your people, but that goes back now to the district service commissions. Who are these people? Who appointed them? The politicians. They appoint their friends. In the Karamoja, the whole of Karamoja, unless if something has changed in the last few months, I know that the district service commissions that are constituted could be 4 out of 9 or 5
maybe
out of the 9.
To conclude.
Yes. So as I conclude, is that I still insist that information must be given to people, but also our leaders must take a deliberate move to help our people to participate, not to keep saying that, for example, when you say contracts are being given to other people, but have we tried to give, for example, these youth efforts here in Kampala? It was done. You must have heard about it, our moderator, when the ED KCCA tried to get these young men and helped them to win a contract, so that they are able to participate. And for me, in participation, that's where I see that we could be keeping people with the words of corruption, but not in actual way of putting them to participate, so that they are able to get the experience and participate in economic development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Information is key, and having people participate is something that you highlight and talk passionately about. Let me get to you, Simon. Simon, you realized early on in your submission, you talked about the adverse effects of corruption, that it would have impact on health, it would have impact on education. But right now, I want you to break down the conversation much lower, because as you're aware, we have been noticing, or we have seen a number of corruption scandals even during COVID-19, even prior, before that, in the year 2007, the Musinguzi incident. Recently, we saw what happened with some COVID funds that were mishandled or were embezzled. Now, I want us to look at vulnerable communities. You realize corruption affects those people, or the vulnerable communities like women, children, young people. So my question to you is, how does corruption disproportionately affect vulnerable or marginalized populations in terms of service access?
Yes.
Simon.
Yeah, like corruption affects marginalized groups in such a way that it limits the access to services, right from the health, education sector, and other services that they need to get as marginalized groups. And the corruption, as stated, it affects marginalized groups in rural areas more than urban areas, and the corruption also has affected the aspect of seeking services in education in such a way that the money that was supposed to be used maybe to buy maybe wheelchairs for maybe disabled groups is swindled by those who are in power. And also maybe the money that is supposed to be used to buy drugs, particularly for PWDs and other marginalized groups, is also swindled. So it limits that category of people to really equally get a service that they are supposed to get, like these other categories of people. And that's my submission.
Thank you. Thank you very much for highlighting the fact that vulnerable communities like persons with disabilities greatly suffer the adverse effects of corruption. Let me get to you, Moses. I'm still interested in the region, and in your previous argument, you talk about loss of public trust, and maybe I understand you would possibly want to respond to my brother Good Luck, but as you respond to my brother Good Luck, I want to talk about trust and public perception. Possibly how we change it. You argue that, you see, the officials that are greatly corrupt, oftentimes it leads to the public not trusting the system and believing that the government has the capability of enabling change in our communities. So my question to you is, how does corruption really erode this public trust in institutions and service providers, and what can be done to, you know, have a change or have a difference? Moses.
Thank you so much. Straight away, I would want to appreciate what Musinguzi said. And I did love to say, good enough is on track. He's been monitoring what happens. I think he's really a journalist, but I also still disagree with him somewhere. Let me start by the case of we all heard of what happened in Moroto, the killing of is it the geologists? I don't know whether that's the right word. I want to connect that case to the information that he talks about capacity building. Who is supposed to do capacity building? Who is exactly supposed to do capacity building? We have local governments and different stakeholders around. And these communities, however much they are distant, but they are reachable. Who is responsible for doing capacity building? And is it very true that capacity building has not been made in these kind of communities? Is it very true that they are very ordinary enough that they are not part of the rest of the communities that the government or local government workers reach? So I think that will be our question. As far as I know, capacity building started way ago. We even don't know when it started, because for Uganda to reach this level, capacity building should have been well accommodated, and which I believe through the media where Musinguzi works. In Karamoja, we don't have medias like televisions, but we have radio stations. Everyone in Karamoja now, almost, if I'm not mistaken, up to 90%, the Karashuna have phones. And one of the uses of these phones is to listen to news. So you cannot tell me these people don't know what happens in the region. When you talk about capacity building, it still remains a question. Who's supposed to do capacity building? Is it you and me, or it must be another person from outside to come and give us capacity building? That will be a question. Now, another issue that he lamented about the DSO being, is it a diploma or something like that? True, we are talking about corruption. The good thing, you have given the right example, and we are talking about corruption. If the requirements for such a position is supposed to be a master's, how come such a person appeared in office with a diploma, more managing a full department? Don't you think that's already a case of corruption? And automatically, what are we talking about? What are we talking about inadequate trained staff for this case? If you are putting a person who is incompetent as a diploma, and in such office, a master's or a PhD is required, and you are putting someone of a diploma, are you not seeing where you are draining service delivery? So automatically, a person who employed this person as a diploma holder, holding a big position or a big department, should have automatically become dishonest. Otherwise, such a person was not supposed to be in the office. So that one we challenge the public, the Ministry of Public Affairs, and I think that's why we shall get the best answer. Otherwise, that may not be ours. But I already see a point of corruption there. Why I'm saying corruption leads to total public mistrust is, I gave an example of myself. Let me give an example of myself. that I am the cow of Kotido. You know, a cow is the accounting officer. He accounts for both finances and human resource. In a case where the cow and a few individuals have agreed to swindle, to mismanage public resources or funds, automatically, if you are 3 or 2, one person will go silent, but the name of the cow will be sour. What does it imply? Automatically, you as Douglas, a cow of Hoima, will be mistrusted, not only by the people in the community, but also the government. That means at that particular moment, you are putting your position at stake. That is what I'm saying. Corruption leads to community mistrust. And when there is community mistrust, that's why I gave an example of Karamoja. When there is community mistrust, because within the community, we expect everyone to be around the community. Mad people, clever people, every sort of humanity. There are those who are just hypers. They are hypocrites. When we are talking about capacity building, there are those who are moving to the right hand of doing capacity building. Then there are those who are moving different. As who are doing the right capacity building here, they are coming to change the story. Probably I may think this is what could have caused the death of the geologist in Akaba. Maybe someone may have gone to instill wrong information in the community. And then that's why when these people bumped in, they were either beaten or killed. I think the example he gave is just a current one where people were beaten. But the first one is people were killed. People were killed and burnt after killing, which is very dangerous for all of us, you know. So, meaning within the community, we expect some people who can even change the whole information. And who are these people? Some people are natural leaders. We are talking about natural leaders. There are people who are even beyond LC ones. By the time they mention a word in the village, the LC one is down. At that moment, the LC one even does not have powers. The whole village follows the person. So when we are talking about capacity building, we should also consider that aspect. And that is where I'm talking about community trust. Assuming these individuals went and infiltrated the community, gave wrong information, and by the time you, Douglas, lands there, the community is already wild and they are not even ready to listen to you, you know, even when they know you. Because maybe probably they have said, it is exactly the office of Douglas. We embezzled the money that was meant to come to this community. Will you be safe? The answer is obviously no. That is why I'm saying it leads to community mistrust. Then we have whistleblowers within organizations. We have whistleblowers within centralized governments. We have whistleblowers in local governments. And these are the kind of people I'm talking about, who take the information in reverse. It's either because you have wars in your office, it's either because you don't agree totally in your office, or something like that. And maybe one of the agreements is that when you are embezzling, you're not considering your friends. So in one way or the other, you become not safe. That's what I'm saying. The community automatically will have mistrust towards that department, towards that sector, towards the ruling government. All right. My brother Onen. I think that is my submission as far as we're going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You highlight and bring out very key issues in the conversation. And let me get back to you, Greenlock, and maybe we do one final round and we call the conversation off because we're almost to the top of the hour. But Greenlock, good luck. I'd like to ask you about the social and political implications of corruption. But maybe I understand you maybe have a response to my brother Moses. But my direct question to you would therefore be that how does corruption exacerbate social inequalities and reinforce existing power dynamics? Good luck.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, a quick reply is on the issue of the Kotido DHO. The District Service Commission appointed by the District of Kotido under local government, under decentralization, is the one which appoints those people. And the District Council appoints the District Service Commission. So Kampala has no issue. That one is basically an issue to be dealt at the district level. Secondly, about capacity building, I think Moses, you are again a leader from what I'm listening and the way you're speaking. And I think for me, if your members of parliament, your local leaders were pushing for this, for example, again, we can see from the presidential initiative, something built around Moroto, young people are being given skills. That's number one. But then we know there's also, I think, microfinance center, which is trying to give capital because one, it is one thing for me to have the skills. It's one other thing also to have the capital to be able, for example, to have a company, register the company, and I go for mining and all this. It was unfortunate we lost technical people whom, again, maybe wrong information went out and they were killed, but that's a loss that we count. On the socio-economic impacts of corruption, I can tell you it is very big. For example, when we see the young children from Karamoja on the streets begging, if there's anything as a human being socially, one time I almost broke down because I saw a child in mud. It had just stopped raining near Gaddafi mosque. I just broke down. That is the element that when we cannot do what we are supposed to do, the end result, the effect comes back and is seen in our communities. And definitely, we here in Kampala, when you see these children, you sometimes wonder what should be done and what can be done. And that one means that, and you remember, I remember the media one time, even me, actually that time, even when I broke down, I tried to push something. Now, when the 3 billion was raised to remove the children from Karamoja on the streets, I'm told almost 1.8 billion was used in training officers. And again, this is misuse of money, wastage, and all that. So it all comes back, and I'm so sorry that I feel so emotional when I talk about this issue. Now, economically, there is no way now. See, the cows have come home to bite. We want to protect our morals, then World Bank is saying it's taking the money. COVID came, of course, it affected everyone. You can't say it affected you alone. Ebola came and affected us in one way. Our tourism, when the tourists are not coming, one, because of insecurity, but secondly, because of maybe them claiming the law discriminates them. All these things affect us. That when people, and you remember when President Clinton was campaigning, he said, when the economy is stupid, he was saying, when you touch your pockets and you don't have the money, who has the money? So the money, even if we have little money as a country, but is it well spread? Are we feeling that are people being paid the salaries? Are projects happening in our districts? Are we able to have these projects that maybe, because for example, you know, when you have a magnitude of a road of 80 million US dollars, believe me or not, some money will go in the community. So all this comes back to us, that we hear the reports from organization. For example, today, the deputy IGG is in Intungamo. You must have heard in Intungamo district where people created ghost health centers, and people, for example, the secretary of the chief administrative officer was getting money that is supposed to be paying a health worker and getting allowances when she's a secretary in someone's office. And so today we have seen a few people are being arrested. And for me, that is action. But definitely that money should have gone to pay health workers elsewhere. So whenever somebody takes that money, it affects us. But for me, the worst part on the social aspect, it is seen when we hear jiggers in Busoga, when we see the children are malnourished, when we don't see medicines in hospitals, when the budgets are being cut, all that comes to us and it presses us hard. And of course, every government, every society should strive to make sure that their people are better. That's my submission.
Thank you very much. That's a passionate or painful submission, my brother. When you're looking at the social, economic, and political implications of corruption, it's true that it definitely hits the most vulnerable hardest. And we talk about the children on the streets. You about all those examples you highlighted. It's very painful. Let me get quick thoughts from you, my brother Simon. Then I'll go to Moses, and we can wrap the conversation up. Simon, speak of the same, the social, economic, and political implications of corruption on service delivery.
Yes, thank you very much, Drake. To begin with, my submission is that this corruption has really affected our society in terms of effective service delivery. And also, of course, this impacts on the political aspects, the economy, and then the social aspects. Now, on the economic aspect, this reduces on the taxes, revenues that is supposed to be collected. And we depend on, especially, we depend highly on the revenue. And making it worse, the World Bank has also withdrawn their funding from Uganda. So we need these monies that is collected from people and various institutions, so that we can develop as a nation. But now when corruption comes in, the money that is collected, revenue that is collected, is taken away by people. In the long run, it really affects us economically, in terms of maybe setting out to maybe schools, health facilities, and the like. And also, it also makes the current government to be unpopular politically. When there's a high rate of corruption within the country, it politically affects the current government in such a way that people hate the current government. They can even start demonstrations that in the long run can lead them to overthrow of the current government. Also, it also promotes crimes within society. If there is money or resources that is supposed to develop society, and they say maybe, for instance, in Mbale here, maybe there is maybe a discovery of minerals, and then in that they come to learn that it is just a few people within that surrounding area that benefit, that benefit from those minerals. You find that they start social unrest among themselves. So that is my submission.
Thank you very much, my brother Simon. We have reached the top of the hour of tonight's conversation, but briefly, let me get your insights, Moses, on the social and political and economic implications of corruption on service delivery in Uganda at large, and maybe you can narrow it down to Karamoja sub-region. Moses?
Okay, thank you so much again, members. I still remain Moses, and I'm really so happy. How I wish more of these kind of things would come. I think it gives us a platform to air out our views and share the common experiences that cut across the country. The political, social, and economic impacts of corruption in society. I first want to assure you that when we talk of political infighting, it is a different thing. We know it is one of the escalating factors of corruption. as you know, it's actually common in place. If I can give an example of a sport organization, and as it impacts delivery of social services, yes, you will come to realize in the political aspect, people are perceived to have self-interest. For example, let's talk of our parliament. People are always perceived to have self-interest in their committees. There is lack of transparency in decision-making. There is lack of consultation. We had them grumbling during the Iron Sheet saga, where there was a lot of blame game. There is nepotism. Of course, also, it creates lack of approachability in committees. So politically. So what does that imply? We are talking about the political figures of this country being the high-profile decision makers. So for whatever is dragged, for whatever thing is dragged down in terms of the service, it is the political, it is our parliament that it decides that Karamoja needs this agency in terms of treat, and then they allocate to the department that is responsible. For example, we have ever seen food being brought to Karamoja because of the escalating anger. Yes, we are talking about decision making. So if then these people dishonestly do not do the right thing, if swindling and embezzling, what is required for the public is what they do, at the end of it all, how are you helping the country to grow? Then when you come down, even before a service has been brought down, is there public inclusion? Is there community inclusion? When we talk about community inclusion, then now we talk about capacity building. Have you set them to receive the service? Or you're just bumping even with the smaller service after getting ashamed that you cannot eat all? We saw where people were in Kotido here. I saw when people were being arrested. This is because of the nuts things that were meant for the public, and the goods were not well distributed. Whatever was required was not well distributed. So when they came for monitoring and evaluation, people were caught offside, people were arrested. You know, even after eating and bringing the smaller thing out of shame, did you tell people this and this is coming? Or are you really accounting in the right way that maybe it was supposed to be 1,000 and something heifers which were supposed to be brought? However, they only brought 700. We are still awaiting for the 300. So that the community has that trust in you that at the end of it all, we have our person standing for us. It is irrespective of the race or the tribe. As long as you are in that office, you are expected to do your best, because at the end of it all, even God will have to appreciate you. Then economically, for the case of Karamoja now, we are talking about insecurity, which is the current threat in the region. Trust me, if we are talking about balanced growth development of this country, and there is insecurity here, it is not yet capped. Trust me, how that investor who's willing to come and maybe have some good acres of land to put some serious business or put some sort of a factory will get courage to come and stand in Karamoja amidst the insecurity.
All right. Thank you very much, Moses, for those wonderful submissions. Right about now, I'm just going to quickly get concluding remarks, and I'm going to begin.
Oh, we still have to say, sorry, my network.
Oh, yes. Maybe
hello?
As you conclude, then we get to conclude. Yes, you can conclude.
Hello, Onen. Yes, I was concluding actually. Yes, I was giving an example of investors, entrepreneurs that come that would wish to come and do businesses in Karamoja. And you know, when one part of the country is not well brought up, is not, we are still blaming them for illiteracy, we are still blaming them for not being learned, and they're lagging behind. There is no way you will tell me Uganda will be moving at the same pace. So until then, we have to see a way of coming the insecurity, so that we see entrepreneurs buying an idea of coming to Karamoja, do whatever is required, give services to people, and money will be in circulation. Otherwise, if it is not the case, if it is not done, corruption in Uganda will still remain a nightmare. I rest my case. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Moses. Maybe I'll just stick with you. Kindly give us briefly, in less than a minute, you give us your concluding remarks and your parting shots in less than a minute.
First of all, I want to congratulate you guys I want to congratulate you for bringing me on board. My only wish is that please keep engaging us, and I will tap in more resourceful people so that we keep sharing experiences. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you very much. We'll definitely keep engaging, and we want the Karamoja question to be. Let us have Mr. Simon. Mr. Simon, kindly give us your concluding remarks and parting shots.
My concluding remarks on corruption is that the battle against corruption requires the participation of each of us to do something about the vice, because it affects humanity. I believe that corruption kills more people across the globe. People die on a daily basis due to lack of medicines, absence of health workers, inadequately equipped health workers, insufficient education facilities, and so on. We have all different opportunities to make our contribution. For the leaders, for instance, they have to use their good influence to push for increased accountability and transparency in our societies.
Yeah.
And for NGOs and CSOs, they have to ensure that they act as an island of integrity to demonstrate how things should be done, while the private sector should demonstrate its commitment to do good business free from corruption. In addition, the battle against corruption starts with us as at individual level, and this evil should come to an end at the end of the day. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Simon, for the call to action to individuals, civil society organizations, and above all to the leaders. Last but not least, the gentleman, Musinguzi, good luck. Kindly unmute and give us your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Onen. My conclusion is that, first of all, I appreciate Civic Space TV for giving us an opportunity always to again air out the information we have, so that our people are able to get the right information. Secondly, is that corruption is a monster. For example, I'm seeing Minister of Agriculture at one point got almost $800 million in 10 years. Most of this money was put in seminars and all these things, and I can see the head of state is complaining. So that means that corruption really it doesn't make the country move. And for example, in these last years where we have had corruption tendencies, if we used the money rightly, maybe we wouldn't even be scared of anyone stopping their money. So whoever is charged to take care of any penny of the community, you can misuse your own money, but even at family level, you are accountable at family level. Now, why would you misuse our money as a country? So please, everyone, whoever is charged with money that is on behalf of the public, use that money very well, because in the next 10 years, we don't know what will happen. So a good investment now means a good investment for the country. For regions like Karamoja, which are being marginalized, we pray that the local leaders, people like Moses, should come up, get right information, but also mobilize their communities to demand for what really will push them in the right direction. That we want an empowered Karamoja, which will help us to reduce these children. That when people are busy in Karamoja working and the economy is working for them, that we will not see children on the streets. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity. Until next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you all, my dear panelists, for being very wonderful, quite informed, and having an engaging conversation. Thank you very much to Simon, and thank you, good luck, for taking time to join us in tonight's conversation. It has been quite interesting hosting all of you and hearing your insights. Otherwise, from Civic Space to you, our esteemed viewers, tonight we're discussing the impact of corruption on service delivery. We have gotten very wonderful insights. Let the conversation continue going. Put it on the comment section and follow us, subscribe, and definitely thanks to Center for Constitutional Governance. And from me to you, have a good week and goodbye.